Hey everybody, I decided to make this video because a lot of you guys have been asking me about, today we're doing Darius. Is Darius good? Is Darius viable? How's Darius doing after the item rework? Well, the answer is that he's doing worse. He's not doing as good as he used to be doing, but he's still doing fine. Darius has always excelled at the Platinum to Diamond area. At Platinum, he's got a 50% win rate with the 3rd highest pick rate. At Diamond, he's the 9th highest pick rate with a 49.82% win rate. He's always excelled around the Plat to Diamond area. At the lower ranks, at all ranks, he still remains popular, but at a 48% win rate, he doesn't do as well. Particularly at Masters Plus, we can see he's down to the 17th highest pick rate with a 48%. Darius's win rate, his impact on the game, pops around the Diamond to Plat area. Now, typically in Platinum, he'll have a high 50% to 51% win rate, so being at a very low 50% is definitely weaker than he's been in the past. I do agree with that amount, but the item change has been somewhat kind to Darius, and if I go into this champion, I shouldn't actually say it was kind, it was actually bad for him. I don't know why I said kind, but the one thing it did do good, the one thing it was kind with was the Trinity change. Now, Trinity is still only a 57% pick rate, so a lot of you guys haven't moved over to Trinity Force yet. Why did Trinity Force become particularly good on Darius? Well, there were actually two changes that happened. The first one was its health increased to 300. Now, a lot of you guys think that the maximum base damage going from 30% to 20%, so if you attack 6 times, Darius, he lost 10% base damage boost. But the thing is, Darius doesn't auto-attack 6 times. He only needs to proc bleed on 5 attacks, and his Q counts, so he'll be at 4 stacks of Trinity when he's got 5 bleeds. So Darius doesn't need to get these stacks, and particularly as the game progresses, you typically want to be getting 5 bleeds into an ult, or 5 bleeds into one last proc into an ult. You don't want to be sitting here at max stacks beating the crap out of people, so this health actually works better for Darius. The second change that was good for him was Hearthbound Axe coming down in gold. Hearthbound Axe went from 1100 to 1000. This item gives him attack speed, it gives him damage, and it gives him movement speed. This item coming down by 100 gold makes it far more viable on him, and potentially in a matchup where he needs movement speed but also needs all-in power, this forms a decent early game option for him. So that's why I would say the item rework was kind. Now here's where it gets unkind. Stark's Gauge is undeniably weaker on him. Deadbands is still an overall weak item that he has to go anyway. Force of Nature is pretty good, that one's solid, but it's pretty rare to fight enough magic damage where you need Force of Nature. That's actually one thing I've hated as time goes on, is that Force of Nature is so good, but nobody plays magic damage teams anymore. So, I would say Darius' core build right now is Trinity and Starix. Although it's weaker, again, it is weaker than it used to be, and he can't go overgrowth like Garen can. I mean, he could maybe try to sneak it in, but Darius kind of relies on unflinching. It's still weaker, but it's still his best build. Much like Set, he's in a situation where his best build got nerfed, but it's still his best build, so overall, he is weaker. So one of the things I would recommend you guys stop doing is don't build Stridebreaker anymore. The slow was never that good on Darius, and he really went it because it synergized with him the most, but now that Trinity Force is at 300 health, he pretty much prefers the Trinity Force, particularly because it has more attack speed. Darius likes getting to 5 bleeds and massacring people pretty quickly. So that's that. I'll go over his item build a bit later. For Rune's table, here's some misconceptions people have. 11% of you are still building Lethal Tempo. Now here's one thing I want to talk about. When I make these videos, I look at all the runes, I play the champion, I go into the practice tool, I practice their combos, I practice making these videos many times. Even though the videos only come out to like 10 to 20 minutes, I'm probably practicing talking about this champion for 2 to 3 hours and just redoing a take. These videos are typically one take, but I'll keep redoing the take until I can get a flow and a thing to it. So one thing I keep running into while I'm trying to do these takes is that U.GG seems to keep recommending stuff like this. Here we can see at Plat Plus they're recommending a sorcery build, and here we can see at Masters Plus they're recommending Lethal Tempo. Some of you might look at a website like this and think, oh, Lethal Tempo must be the best rune. So you go and you check it and you say, oh my god, Lethal Tempo is a higher win rate than Conqueror at Masters Plus. It must be the best rune. It's not. Despite having a 15% win rate, 15% of the 3,300 games played is only about 500 games. At 500 games played, a couple games being trolled, a dozen games won versus lost could change this win rate by over 1%. So when we're getting into very low pick rate things at the high ranks, I would start taking everything with a grain of salt. Conqueror is better. When we look into the other ranks, we can see Conqueror has a decidedly higher win rate and also a massively higher pick rate. I mean, you can see a D2 plus. I mean, the pick rate is just absurd. Lethal Tempo does excel at bullying people in the early game, and as you can see, its pick rate goes in Masters Plus. It goes up a little bit in pick rate, but I would not recommend it. It's not worth trying to get a little bit of extra game bullying when Conqueror is so much stronger in the late game. Remember, here's one thing about Darius. Conqueror right here, he's Q procs Conqueror, so you'll have 5 bleed stacks at a Q and 4 autos, right? So you haven't even proc Lethal Tempo here. You'll have Conqueror stacked up at 5 autos and a Q. In that situation, you still wouldn't have Lethal Tempo procced up. Lethal Tempo doesn't scale the best. Conqueror scales better, and Conqueror is just better. So we're gonna load up Darius here because I want to show you guys some things with him. So first up, with Darius, let's look at these runes. This would be a typical Darius build. This one's pretty solid. You have the Conqueror, you have the Triumph, you have the Legend Tenacity, and you have the Last Stand. That's a pretty typical Bruiser build. Darius loves Tenacity. Over in the Resolve tree, we have the Bone Plating for the All-In, the Unflinching for more Tenacity. That way he doesn't, with this, he's just not going to get stunned, and Darius doesn't like being stunned or slowed. He likes being in range. Then the attack speed, the damage, the armor, magic resist, depending on what you need. Now obviously, if you, as always, if you're fighting a ranged champion or somebody's going to poke you down, go that second win, grab that door and shield, try to tank through it. If you're fighting a team that has basically no stuns, you can go Legend Alacrity. If they literally don't have any stuns or slows, although I can't imagine that would happen, I guess you could go Alacrity Revitalize, but we're getting a bit into a conceptual territory here. As for Summoners, Flash, and Ghost, those are doing really good on him. When Teleport was nerfed, that actually did benefit Darius because he didn't use Teleport to begin with. Now, when we look at skins, I use Woad King Darius because I find it's really cool. There's also High Noon Darius is pretty cool. God King Darius, I actually wouldn't recommend. His Q hitbox gets changed a little bit, and it's super off-putting. And every time I play that skin, every single time I miss my Qs in really obvious scenarios because it just, I don't know really how to describe it, but it just throws off his Q hitbox really hard. Now, I'm going to level up here. I don't know why I did it right at the beginning. As for items, a lot of people like Doran's Blade for the better all-in power. If you're fighting a ranged matchup, you get Doran's Shield. If you're fighting someone who can poke you in melee or isn't going to force an all-in, then Doran's Shield is also really good in this situation. Now, Darius at level 1, he uses W. Now, if I could pull up, let's pull this up here. Why does Darius go W at level 1 now, when he always in the past would go Q? Or maybe potentially an E? Well, his W cooldown got reduced to 5 seconds at all ranks from 7 to 5. That means his W cooldown is now just a flat 5. That's pretty strong in the early game. Despite getting its damage nerfed a bit ago, the reduced cooldown just makes it much stronger in the early game. So what does this early game look like? Just like that. Just a pretty typical auto reset. Let me refresh the cooldowns. Oh, I did it wrong there. So one thing you can do on Darius, because his W is a special ability, remember you can do funny things like this, unlike a champion like Jax. If you use your W and then click to move, you'll instantly start moving after it stops animating, and you'll always animation cancel the end of it completely. As for level 2, there's some funny things you can do here, and remember when I said W is a special animation? I mean, it's a very special animation. So if you look here very carefully, you can see that even if I start the W, I can instantly just press Q. Do you see that? So the second you start that W animation, you can just instantly press Q. So you can basically just press WQ and instantly cancel that thing. Oh, I ran out of mana to use it there. So that's a pretty strong level 2 combo. Now, for level 3, obviously you go E. Why do you go E? The majority, I'm gonna have to go over here to show you guys this. The vast majority of the time when you use your E, it puts you into Q crit range. Even if they're in melee, although sometimes it doesn't. If they're too close, it won't, but sometimes it will anyway. But if someone's like right next to you, you can use your E and you can see it bumps them away. So particularly into some matchups like Jax, you can pull them out of Counter-Strike. They leap strike on you and they start Counter-Striking. Oh no, he's right on top of me and he's Counter-Striking. You bump him, and then you walk away as they're being bumped, and oh no, now I'm not in Counter-Strike stun range. Then you prep a Q, then when Counter-Strike gets over, you pop Ghost, you run back in, and they're dead. Everybody get that? So the other thing you can do with E is if you right click, I'll show you this real quick. If you on right click and you use E, you'll instantly start auto attacking your target that you're right clicking. Everybody got that? Now that can also mean that if you right click, you can do an auto reset into W and then just cancel your W into a Q. See that? So if you ever fight those Darius players who can just somehow get their 5 bleeds so fast and you're like, damn, how did he do that? Well, they pull you, start the auto attack, cancel it, and that's 3. That's 3 right there. So if I just could show you then from this how this would look in practice during the laning phase, I didn't do it right, but in this situation, you then just run them down, because particularly, let's say you have a Jax who's used his Counter-Strike, well, you pull into Q, then you just ghost forward, auto into W, and you're already at 3 bleed stacks. He has no Counter-Strike, and he has no Leap Strike, and he's dead. So that's generally how Darius' early game works. Next up, and this is actually one thing I see you guys do wrong a lot, max your Q first, and then max your E. Some of you guys try to max W for the damage. You look at your E, I don't know why. I don't know why. For the life of me, I will never be able to tell you why. But some of you look at your E and they go, oh, that doesn't give me damage. I should max my W second. Your E does give you damage. It gives you armor pen. And by the way, the armor pen works on turrets. So if I could show you then real quick here, if I grab this and we do this, I have the Trinity here. Let me level up to level 13. Okay, so we go to level 13, so I can max out my E here. That 35% armor pen works on turrets. So this goes into the Trinity, by the way. So do you see here how that's a lot of damage? And that's a lot of damage even as the plates go down. Do you see that it's now got, what is that? Oh, I literally can't see. So 120 armor, and I'm still just bapping away at it. Yeah, because Darius's E, the armor pen, works on turrets. Even a turret with 150 armor is getting it reduced by this potential 35%. So anyway, that's his early game. That's kind of how he goes in the laning phase and all that stuff. For those who items, obviously you got Steric's Gauge, Deadman's. I would call this core, but I wouldn't say that Deadman's is super core. Some people instead of Deadman's have done Death's Dance. Now, why have they done Death's Dance? Well, because if you look here, it is currently healing for 491 because my passive damage feeds into that Death's Dance. So here it's healing 261. 261. 494. And that's without even full Conqueror. So with no Conqueror, with no Conqueror and with no passive, 261. That's not the greatest, right? But 261, 494. Yeah. So Death's Dance is seeing some plan Darius. I wouldn't say it's like some secret niche build. This isn't something like I'm not feeding you guys like the super secret Darius information, right? It's okay. In the right situation, if you need armor, yeah, it's okay. It doesn't give you any more shield for your Steric's Gauge though. So even if you get the 300 HP from Deadman's, you're looking at a 750 Steric's Gauge shield. So what some people will do is a build like this, where they've got the Trinity, the Force of Nature, the Deadman's, the Steric's, the Thornmail. I would say that's a pretty, like if you want like a target build, a build that you'd build the majority of the time, this is a pretty solid one. And we can see here, you're at 468 movement speed, because you got the movement speed from your Trinity, the movement speed for your Force of Nature, the movement speed from your Deadman's. This, into the late game, pretty strong, pretty fast. Now, you don't always need, let me clear these things because they keep killing people. You don't always need all these items, alright? If you're not fighting magic damage, you don't need Force of Nature. You could potentially slot in a Gargoyle Stone Plate. You don't need a Thornmail every game. You could potentially slot in a, well, I guess in this situation, a Spirit Visage. So, I mean, you could also go, some people do builds like this. We got the the Trinity, the Sterax, the Deadman's, the Gargoyle Stoneplate, and the Spear Visage. Now, why would you do this? Well, as you might be imagining, Spear Visage makes your Sterax gauge shield bigger, so you can get to those 5 bleeds, you can tank through a team fight much easier, and it also makes your Gargoyle Stoneplate shield bigger. So once again, between the Gargoyle Stoneplate and the Sterax gauge, it's going to be really hard to kill you. You can run in, you can immediately get burst down, and you can just pop that Gargoyle and be like, pow pow. There's also some jankiness that goes on with Gargoyle. Sometimes his Q gets a bit weird, but yeah, again, I don't really know. There's something weird going on with that Q sometimes. And I would say those are probably his target builds. Those are probably what he's doing. I mean, and again, you can change anything you want. Realistically, so long as you got that Sterax and you got that Trinity, any of the items he builds around are going to fit into this somehow. So even if you go Distance, okay, so if you go Distance, it gives you armor and damage reduction, so you heal more with your abilities, and you get the bleed, and the bleed will allow you to live, and you know, okay, great. Now, so if you go Spear Visage, okay, so you grab these items, you got armor, you got magic resist, you got armor, you've got damage bleed, the stance heals more because of Spear Visage, the Spear Visage is boosting up the Sterax gauge, like, you know, so in this situation, once again, you got a solid build, cap that out, maybe with a Deadman's or a Force of Nature, depending on what you need. So you could easily just go, okay, so here's Deadman. So we end up with 199 armor, 86 magic resist. Maybe we would get burst down by magic damage too easily. You could slot this out for Force of Nature. So, you know, so really Darius is one of, at least in my opinion, he's always been one of the more versatile champions when it comes to items. So that's kind of what makes one of these videos a bit more difficult to make, because there's no core build where like this is the build for Darius. But if you had a build where you went this is the build, it would probably look something like, oh, I mean, in this situation, potentially a Force of Nature, so maybe Sterax, Trinity, Deadman's, Thornmail, Force of Nature. This is a solid build, lots of movement speed, healing debuff. Remember, you healing debuff on your E because it's immobilized. You got a shitload of damage on the Trinity and the Sterax. So I mean, maybe this is your core build, I don't know. At either rate, that's pretty much Darius. So I hope that helps you guys at least learn him, and once again learn that he's not doing terribly. He's not super amazing, ultra mega top tier broken, but no, he's doing all right. He's doing fine. He's doing just fine. And once you guys start getting into that Trinity, once you start dropping that Stride Breaker, you start going Trinity. And here's another thing. Again, for those of you who think, oh, but I'll be losing the movement speed and slow bow. Actually, here's the thing: is that Stride Breaker gives you. I'm trying to find it here. Stride Breaker gives you the 20 movement speed whenever you deal damage, which is great on Darius's bleed. But Trinity gives you 20 movement speed for 3 seconds whenever you auto attack someone, which is pretty good too. It also gives you the movement speed on the Mythic passive, so don't think, oh, Stridebreaker gives you more movement speed on the Mythic passive. That's great, but Trinity is still giving you some movement speed, and then you're getting the turret killing, and you're getting all this stuff, so Trinity's pretty good. And remember, again, Trinity, the sheen on Trinity, the on-hit, Darius's E, his armor pen hits turrets. Have you ever seen a Darius player who goes on the split push with Trinity and obliterates your turret in 5 seconds? Yeah, that's what's going on. So yeah, that's it. That's it for the video. There's a core build. I hope you guys have fun, and I hope you guys enjoy playing Darius, because once again, he's fine. He's doing just fine. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. A special shout out and thank you to my Patreon supporters. You people are very special, and you continue to help these videos happen. If anyone would like to join my Patreon, you can find the link in the description. Joining there helps me, and for as little as $3 a month, you can help me continue to make these videos a lot. Going to the future, I want to remind everybody that I can't make item builds on every champion, because I'd like to make sure that I know exactly what I'm talking about. I like to make sure that I've gone into the practice tool, that I've put time into the champion. But yeah, I mean, I will try to upload as many of these as I can, particularly if I find any new champions with item builds. At some point in the future, we might be doing doubles. In fact, definitely in the future. So you might see a second Aatrox, or a second Volibear, or a second Darius build video in the future. So that's something to look out for. In the meantime, though, just thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate everybody. Once again, special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.